You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Straight week that we are recording the Show Before the Show podcast on a day in which I am also working the day shift, and it's so we've been in such close communication, Sam.
I know. It feels like we're just bringing in everybody to conversations we've been having all day anyway.
Yeah, it's madness. It's now you get to peek behind the curtain, all of you, or something like that. And you would think, being in such communication, it'd be a better show. But unfortunately, I'm still the one who is partially hosting it, so lower your expectations. Hey, welcome into this week's edition of the Show Before the Show podcast from MILB.com. Sam Dykstra in New York City. My name is Tyler Maughan. This is episode number 160 of the Show Before the Show. And wherever you found us, we thank you for tuning in. If your podcast service so allows, give us a rating and a review and a subscription, and we would be grateful. You can get in touch with the show, podcast at MILB.com. And there, housekeeping out of the way. I had a professor in journalism college in broadcasting say, never refer to things, especially on the radio, as housekeeping, or like cheesy sports radio hosts who are like, we got to pay the bills. Coming up after the break, we'll talk who your favorite team should take in the NFL draft in 2024. So I'm a little bit ashamed that I just refer to something as housekeeping on a podcast, especially.
I mean, the only reason I know that people call that housekeeping is because I've heard it called housekeeping before on podcasts.
By some other nerd. Oh, on podcasts. Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, on podcasts. Like they will say, like, all right, this is stuff we have to get out of the way. And I don't think it's us getting it out of the way. You know, it's
That's
like
true.
we genuinely want you to find us however you can find us, and we are genuinely glad you're here and would love to hear from you however we can. So, you know, I don't necessarily think about it as housekeeping in a bad way. It just means we're in a tidier house.
That's true. Okay. I can deal with that. So thanks for tuning in. And we open the show this week, as we do all weeks, with Strike One on this week's edition of Three Strikes. And we are going to talk Washington Nationals organization right out of the gate. The Nationals' number 16 overall prospect, Juan Soto, needed just 16 games in the Carolina League with Potomac before making his jump to Double-A. Soto headed up just about a week ago. This came pretty soon after we recorded last week's episode. But in the start to his season this year, Juan Soto has crushed like everything he's seen everywhere he's been. Soto is 19 years old. He's at his third level for 2018 already. 16 games in the South Atlantic League, 373, 486, 814 with Class A Hagerstown. 15 games with Potomac at Class A Advanced, 371, 466, 790. And he's already hitting 296 out of the gate with a 387 OPS and a 556 slugging percentage in 7 games with Harrisburg. This is a really, I don't want to say out of nowhere, but this is a prospect who probably wasn't highest on everybody's radar in the Nationals organization coming into 2018. He's been really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think people were generally high on him. They just had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
When I was down in Nationals camp this spring, I did a story on him and Carter Keyboom, who is now at Class A Advanced Potomac. And both of those guys were really well thought of last year when they were healthy, but both guys kind of struggled with injuries. I know Soto had a hamate bone surgery that took him out for a while. He only played 23 games with Hagerstown, had a myriad of other stuff come up, all kind of freak injuries, nothing overly worrisome about his overall health. But what was going to happen when he started to string more than 23 games together? And yet the Nationals are pushing him quicker than even I thought they would. I remember talking to some officials down there, and they were saying, like, are you guys still going to push him from Class A Advanced or from Class A Hagerstown to Class A Advanced Potomac, given how well he did last year? Because he did hit 360 with a 950 OPS in those 23 games with the Suns in 2017. And they said, let's wait. Let's let the guy get even half a season at a level before we move him. And I don't know if something's changed, if they've just seen more of him. I mean, obviously they've seen a lot of good stuff lately from him, but it seems like there's been a little bit of an organizational change in terms of philosophy with him and their ability to push him. I mean, for those who are binge listening to the podcast in any way, you'll know last week's show, we had Potomac manager Trip Keister on the podcast. And in my conversation with him, he was talking about what they still need to work with Juan Soto on. We had that discussion on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, like minutes after I uploaded the podcast to our RSS feed, he was promoted. So, like, I don't even think Keister saw that coming. He knew there were some fixes that Soto still needed, and yet they still pushed him to Harrisburg. Now, like Tyler said, he's done incredibly well in Harrisburg. This is his first time seeing upper-level pitching of any kind, really. He did have an 0-for-9 streak over 3 games over the weekend, but even that, like, it felt weird because it was the first time all season, I think, in which he didn't have hits in back-to-back games. But since then, he's got 6 hits and 14 at-bats. He hit another home run earlier today. Again, we're recording on Wednesday. So now he has 14 home runs on the season. That's tied for the most in all of minor league baseball. People, again, thought really well of him, but thought of him as more of a hit tool guy with some above average power that could eventually play into that. He's going above and beyond basically what we thought his power potential could be. It's really exciting to see him get pushed in this way and to continue to answer the call and do as well as he has everywhere he's gone. Part of me would like to see him fail a little bit, just because I do think that can be a learning experience. As much as, we loved seeing Ronald Acuna last year move from Class A Advanced Florida at the beginning of the year and finishing in the year at AAA Gwinnett, to see him move up so quickly, hit 3 levels like Soto's doing, you still need in the minor leagues to learn how to fail, learn how to adjust, and move on from there. The Nats really aren't doing that with Soto yet. But like I said, he did go for an 0-for streak over the weekend, and it seems to have come back well from that. So maybe he's showing better ability to adjust. I'm really excited to see what kind of year he can have. Again, when he's healthy, when health is not even a question with him. I really enjoyed hitting with him, being 19 years old. It is kind of similar to Vlad Guerrero Jr. in that way, that Guerrero and Soto just have such advanced approaches. They know exactly what they're trying to do up there. They know exactly what guys are trying to do with them. I know when I asked Soto, like, how do you know exactly when, things are going off for you, or how you can be a good hitter, and he says it's all in my head. It's if my head is on plane, if I'm looking at the pitch the way I need to be, if I'm not adding too much movement, that's when I can hit really well, and I'm confident I can do that. And he's showing that. I mean, just to know the mechanical breakdowns that on that minute level for his age is pretty astonishing. It'd be pretty astonishing for anybody. I could listen to Joey Votto talk all day about the mechanics of his swing, but to Soto already have that knowledge is really something. And to see him put it into practice has been really special these first couple weeks. We'll have to see, what happens with him now in Harrisburg. I'm expecting him to be there for a while. I don't think this is going to be a push him to Syracuse type situation. But Washington knows, they're going to have some holes in their outfield. Pretty big one at the end of this year, depending on what happens with Bryce Harper. Victor Robles is hurt, so Soto's the next big thing in the system. Might as well see what you have, and when he answers the bell everywhere, you might as well give him new bells to answer. I'd expect him to be with the Senators for a while. Don't expect to see him and Robles in the same outfield when Robles comes back. But I didn't expect him to move this quickly either, so that makes that very exciting.
Yeah, just to clarify, I think I made it sound complicated. He's the number 16 overall prospect in baseball, number 2 in the Nationals organization. But I think coming into 2018, the conversation was so much about Victor Robles, and now the fact that he's only played in 4 games this year and has been hurt, the ascendance to this point of Juan Soto gives you another prospect in that system that you're like, well, man, this kid could surpass everybody and break through. I think there are even other guys coming into this year that you looked at as maybe being a little bit more developed. Daniel Johnson went to the AFL last year. He's started in Harrisburg this season, has had a good start to the year. 22 years old, so maybe somebody who seems more polished and could make that climb a little bit quicker is another ranked outfield prospect in that organization. But Soto has just forced himself into the conversation. If you would have made it to Double-A by the end of this year, if you're somebody like Juan Soto and you're 19 years old and you climb from Class A to Double A in a season. That's impressive enough. It's May 16th and he's already climbed to his third level of the season. But yeah, I think this is kind of one of those situations where you conquer Class A, you're obviously well above what that level could provide you as far as challenges go. Class A advanced, you've handled that very well, so you might as well capitalize on that momentum and really give a guy something that's difficult, or at least should be difficult. Nothing else has proven to be for Juan Soto so far this year. But yeah, I would think it's probably going to be an extended stay. And honestly, if the level catches up to Juan Soto and he struggles, maybe we don't see him at Harrisburg for the rest of the year. He's 19 years old. If the level beats him down, maybe he does at some point return to Potomac, but he has shown no reason for us to believe that that's going to be the case. And pretty impressive stuff from the second-ranked prospect in the Washington Nationals organization, because they needed more outfield prospects to be studs, obviously. Rich getting richer. Strike two this week. Unfortunately, on the other side of the prospect equation is a drawback story, and that is about Wander Javier, who is the Twins' fifth-ranked prospect who is done for the season. Surgery to repair a torn labrum in his non-throwing shoulder, his left shoulder. Wander Javier was a fantastic international prospect that the Twins were able to ink. Last year, he got hurt late in the season. He was signed and made his debut in 2016, played 41 games last year for rookie level Elizabethton, batted .299, .383, .471. But that surgery, it's kind of similar in a sense to what we saw with Gleyber Torres last year, where it's an injury to the non-throwing arm, so it feels a little bit like a ripoff. Like, man, we don't get to see this kid because his stupid non-throwing shoulder had to get hurt. If you're a Twins fan, this is a bummer, because this is a prospect who, though he is very young, seems like he could be one of those guys who climbed relatively high. But he will miss 6 to 9 months. He'll be out for this season, and thankfully, injuries like this, when they happen early on in a player's development, maybe that's a little bit better than happening when he's 21, 22 and nearing the major league level. But you never want to see it at all.
No, not at all. I was really excited to see this guy. I was really excited to figure out exactly what the Twins were going to do at the shortstop position at the lower levels. Nick Gordon is at Double-A. Royce Lewis, the number 1 overall pick, ended last year at Cedar Rapids. He's begun this year at Cedar Rapids and has done very well there. Javier, like you mentioned, Tyler, 383 OBP at rookie level Elizabethton. He was somebody who needed to see full season action, I think. And given his position, what were they going to do with him and Lewis? Were they going to flip them off, or, flip them, one play shortstop one day, one DHs? Or were they going to move Lewis to the center field position, which a lot of scouts and a lot of folks in the game think he'll eventually move out there? What were they going to do? And it's selfish in one way to say that it's too bad we're not going to get an answer to that. But it would have been really interesting to see. Does this really hurt his development? I'm not overly worried about that all that much. Like you said, non-throwing shoulder, not something that's really going to play into his game. And once it's healed, it should be fine, and it's not going to throw him off. It's not like he has to relearn his pitches or anything like that, or relearn his swing all too much. Just needs to get healthy, just needs that to heal and not be in a place where he can hurt it further. But, I mean, he was a back-end top 100 candidate when this happened. This is probably just going to put that on hold for a while. Same thing that we talked about, with some top 50 candidates in terms of like Brent Honeywell and Alex Reyes. Really would have loved to see exactly what they can do, as top prospects, what they can do in that spotlight. Reyes, put on the shelf with Tommy John. Honeywell is currently on the shelf with Tommy John. We still think about them very well afterwards. And the Twins have been through this before. Alex Kirilloff underwent Tommy John surgery in what was supposed to be his first full season. Now he's back in Cedar Rapids and doing extremely well, hitting extra base hits left and right. I think he had a streak of either 12 or 13 games with an extra base hit that was just broken today. So Twins knows a little bit about having, young prospects knocked out for a year. They know what they need to do to come back and rehab them appropriately. And, whenever Javier gets back out there, probably not till 2019, I'll be just excited to see him then as I would have been this April.
Thankfully, it's the non-throwing shoulder. If this was a conversation about the throwing arm, then I think it's really, really different. But the fact that it is not inconsequential in where it happens in the body, but something that certainly won't be quite as big of an effect on his game going forward is a big blessing for the Twins and for Wander Javier. So we wish him all the best with the surgery and rehab and getting ready for 2019. And strike three this week, Sam. We are 6+ weeks now into the minor league season, or at least getting close to that mark. And some guys who bust out have these terrific starts to the season. Juan Soto obviously being one of those guys we've talked about. Vlad Guerrero Jr. Being somebody we've talked about regularly. Ronald Acuna has already made the major leagues. Gleyber Torres is the same. Eloy Jimenez has been fantastic since he got started with AA Birmingham. But on the other side of that, players who have struggled out of the gate. This topic for this week, as Sam came up with for strike three, which struggling prospect do you expect is going to get it turned around at some point this season?
Yeah, my pick for this is Francisco Mejia. Who we've talked about for years now as being one of the best hitters in the game. Had a super long hit streak a couple years back, pushed his way to Cleveland at the end of last year, skipped right over the AAA level. Now he's back at AAA Columbus and not really having that great a start to the year by any metric. Through 30 games, he's only hitting 190 with a 246 OBP and a 306 slugging percentage. He's hit 3 homers again in 30 games. What the thing with Mejia is, it seems like he's just getting dinged up left and right so far this year. He had a right foot contusion back in March. I'm sure that took a little bit to kind of get back together. And, he also got hit in the arm last week. That caused him to miss a couple games. He just came back from that after missing exactly a week on Tuesday. Went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts in that. Nothing that I've heard or read or seen about him seems to indicate that this is a guy who, something has functionally gone wrong with him. His strikeout rate is up a little bit. It's at 22.9% compared to 13.8 last year at AA. But that 13.8% is really, really good. So to say that it went up 9 points, you have to kind of keep that relative. 22.8, not great, but in today's game when people are striking out a lot more, that's a little bit closer to average than you might think. He does have a 227 BABIP. I remember people back in the day, I say BABIP. Some people say BABIP, whatever you want to call it. Yeah,
you say it like a sound effect in the original
BABIP.
Mario Brothers games. BABIP?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's got a 227 BABIP compared to 311 last year. That could speak to just some bad luck. A lot of that is just small sample size. As that kind of increases, I think more hits are going to start to fall in for him. That's what kind of drags everything down right now. Would love to see him take more walks. He's never been a guy who's really taking that many walks in his career. He knows he's a good hitter. When he sees a pitch in the zone, he's going to try to hit it. I get that. I would like to see that part of his game kind of increase, but it seems like between little injuries kind of piling up, and also they've given him time in left field this year at AAA Columbus. He's played 87 innings out there compared to 125 at his more natural position behind the plate. They want to find a spot for him in Cleveland, but throwing all these different things together for him, I think, kind of throws him off a little bit. Still young. Still only 22, will be 22 for this entire year, doesn't turn 23 until October. So not particularly worried just yet. I think the talent is too good. The hit tool is too good. He just needs time to adjust to AAA arms, let some hits fall in, and I think you'll see these numbers start to climb here in the next couple weeks or so.
I told Sam mine kind of feels like a cheap selection because he's already gotten one good outing under his belt. But Hunter Green, who was the first-round selection of the Cincinnati Reds a year ago, really, really struggled through his first 5 outings this season for Class A Dayton in the Midwest League. Through his first 5, 0-2 record, 13.97 ERA. But last time out, and he'll go again, we're recording this on the 16th, he'll pitch again tomorrow. Pitched on May 12th, 4 innings, 2 hits, no runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts, 57 pitches, 39 for strikes, his most efficient outing of the season, his longest outing of the season. Last year, we didn't really get to see much at all from Hunter Green. The Reds drafted him. He was coming to the end of a really long year, a high school season that had started in January and February, basically. Went to rookie-level billings, pitched in 3 games, DH'd a little bit, put up an ERA of 12.46, was shut down. Can't really tell much out of that debut for him. The Reds kind of got him, took him around the block, and then shut him down for the rest of the 2017 season and into 2018. But to see a guy get that first good one under his belt seems like oftentimes that can start breeding success behind it. And for Hunter Greene, I know he touched 100 miles an hour plus several times in that start. I think one thing that is good for the Reds is to see Hunter Greene struggle and be able to bounce back from it early on in his career. Because when you are a guy who has excelled at every single thing you've ever done on a professional or on an amateur field going into your professional career, whether it was as a hitter, as a shortstop, as a pitcher in Hunter Greene's case, when you get to pro ball, turns out guys can hit 100 miles an hour pretty regularly if it's not spotted where it should be, if it's not moving how it should be. So I think Hunter Greene to have taken his knocks through those first handful of outings and then be able to bounce back with just one good start as of right now. Now he's got to try to string it together, and he still hasn't thrown more than 60 pitches in any outing so far either. So he's got to start building some depth and some length into these starts as well. But you can't build a string of them without the first of them. And so if this is the beginning of a turnaround for Hunter Greene, that's a really exciting thing for Reds fans to see. And that Dayton roster is pretty fun right now, and Hunter Greene is the most exciting prospect on it. And 4 scoreless innings last time out. We'll see him again later on this week.
Yeah, and go back to what I was saying before about Soto with Greene. Sometimes you need these guys to fail. I mean, especially these high school players. Yeah. Soto is not one of those, but Greene, he was so dominant in high school. Could blow 100 past anybody. Basically, he's facing on the diamond, gets on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Not that I'm saying he's need to be humbled in that way. He seems like a very humble kid. And everything I've read about him, everything I've experienced with him, being there on draft night even, he understands the score and how things work. But you just need to understand you're not going to get away with certain things in minor league baseball, even at the lower levels. So that's, iron sharpens iron. You need to be battered, hit against and give up a couple of home runs to realize, okay, I can't throw 100 miles an hour straight. I need to pick my places and work in some changeups or work in a breaking ball to keep these guys off this heat. So maybe he's making those adjustments. One good start isn't going to tell us that, but he at least put himself back on a big road, and Lord knows he has the stuff to spin more outings like that one.
And we have one foul ball for this week, but we thought it was going to be a kind of call to action, and instead, thankfully, it's something with a happy ending. Pittsburgh Pirates prospect Gage Hines had open heart surgery on May 8th to repair a failed heart valve, and this, according to PiratesProspects.com, was in order to avoid having to replace that valve in the future. Surgery generally has a 2 to 3 month recovery term, and Gage looks like he'll be back doing baseball-related activities and pitching next year. But because the surgery was not baseball-related, the post-surgery medical expenses and everyday expenses for Gage Hines were not covered. So there was a GoFundMe page established, GoFundMe.com/pitchinforgage, with hyphens in between all those words, and a goal established of $5,500 to help out with his expenses. And we thought we were going to be calling people to go and donate and do what you could. Upon checking it today, that page is no longer accepting donations, and they've raised $8,030 when their goal was $5,500. So that's really, really cool, and we wish all the best to Gage. That is something that is really, really scary, especially as a professional athlete with, anything that goes on with open heart surgery is terrifying, but when you are somebody who exerts yourself as an athlete, that's something that is going to affect you for the rest of your life in a different way than it affects other people. But really cool to see that people came to this call for Gage Hines, and we wish him all the best going forward.
Yeah, totally. And hopefully someday we'll live in a society where we don't need to crowdfund medical funds for folks.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? That'd be
yeah.
Cool. Oh, what? You need a sandwich? I don't know. Let's go after GoFundMe and see if people can help out with some of these expenses going forward. And also tough, the fact that it wasn't a baseball-related surgery. Presumably the surgery itself was covered under his insurance with the Pittsburgh Pirates organization, but these other expenses were not. And as anybody who has dealt with anything even resembling this, any type of hospital stay, anything, there are loads of expenses that come along, not just the stuff that happens actually in the hospital walls. So happy ending, at least in terms of the goal being met. And for Gage, now a recovery process that hopefully leads him back to a professional mound coming up in 2019. He was last a member of the Bradenton Marauders in 2017. So pretty cool stuff, and we wish Gage all the best. And that will wrap us up for the three strike segment of this week's edition of the Show Before the Show. Coming up, we're going to discuss a topic that we initially had set as a strike, and then we thought we should devote a little bit more to this. So that's coming up after a brief pause. We'll discuss the upper levels of the minors and what they mean in player development next. Well, as prospects get close to the major leagues, we've already seen the graduations to the big leagues of several big names this season, Ronald Acuna being among them, Gleyber Torres as well. We have also seen some guys put at the highest levels of the minor leagues and continue their development there. Nick Senzel is the one who probably comes to mind right now, at least in that regard, a guy who is plying his trade in AAA in the Cincinnati Reds organization. But Sam came up with this topic for this week, and it's whether or not players should skip AAA. There is a lot of conventional wisdom that suggests that your top talent is generally centered in AA. Maybe your most major league talent is in AAA. But the debate over how much is added to a player's developmental track by going to AAA is one that has gotten louder in recent years. And Sam, just kind of give me your initial thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, well, I mean, we should say basically why we're talking about this,
yes.
Right? You wrote the story on this literally today. We've been talking so much privately, publicly, written about, blogged about, every medium we can basically get our hands on, that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. doesn't have anything left to prove at AA, basically.
No. He's batting .415 as of the end of the day today.
Yeah.
We're recording on May 16th.
And it's getting to the point where it's not even that he doesn't have anything to prove at AA. What does he really have to prove in the minors in general? So, okay, let's take that and kind of put it off to the side. And now let's talk about, should guys jump straight from AA, regardless of situation? You know, each one is its own case, and I get that. But what happens when you do jump from AA? I came up with two guys who have done this before, at least most recently that I can think of. Michael Conforto jumped from AA Binghamton straight to the Mets in 2015. Did pretty well the rest of the way for the Mets, hitting .270 with a 133 WRC plus, 9 homers in 56 games. Seemed to handle it pretty well. The other one was Andrew Benintendi, who did the same thing a year later, over 34 games with the Red Sox after starting the year at High A Salem, going to AA Portland, then completely skipping over AAA Pawtucket. 34 games with Boston, hit .295 with a 122 WRC plus, only 2 homers, but again was generally an above average hitter. Did not have that big of a problem with making the jump. Now, compare that to Vlad Jr. Basically, both Benintendi and Conforto were college players. They were just out of the draft. They were moving pretty quickly because they were advanced. Their years between being a teenager and where they were when they got called up straight from AA were obviously much. They had a couple years between their teen years. They weren't in the middle of them like Vlad Jr. is right now. These guys had seen college pitching. They'd seen college pitching at good programs, between Arkansas and Oregon State. This isn't a situation where, hey, let's just throw them in the deep end and see what can happen. They had seen pretty good pitching before. There were reasons to believe that they could get called up. Now, compare that to Victor Robles at the end of last year with the Washington Nationals, who got called up straight from AA Harrisburg, completely skipped over AAA Syracuse. He was brought up basically as just another weapon off the Nats bench there at the end of the year. His speed can play anywhere. They used him a lot as a pinch runner, as a emergency outfielder at the end of games, as a defensive replacement, I should say. Those are things that carry pretty well everywhere you go. Got some hitting experience, showed off that speed on a triple. I remember he became kind of a StatCast darling on one triple last year. But he wasn't somebody who the Nats were going to be relying on. They just thought he was another piece. And then this year he starts out at AAA Syracuse. Even Conforto, the year after he made that jump, went back down to AAA Vegas. And I know a lot of Mets fans, a lot of people in the Mets organization or around the Mets organization or in Prospectum in general were really scratching their heads at that move. That seemed out of place. But still, it happened. So the idea that these guys can automatically make that jump and be fine, recent history doesn't exactly tell us that that's going to be the case. Now, Vlad Jr. really is something special, right? Like, can you think of another hitter recently who's been like this? Even Acuna, as good as he was, we thought him as more of a tooled up guy. He's going to get some extra hits with his power. He's going to get some extra hits with his speed. But Vlad is maybe the best hitter I've seen.
Yeah, I can't think of really an offensive comparison to Vlad right now. The only other guy who even kind of has the same profile is the guy right behind him in Eloy Jimenez, because he can hit for some pop too. But Vlad is just like of a different, even the balls that Vlad doesn't hit out, he hits as hard, it seems like, as the balls that he hits out. Just everything that comes off his bat comes off like a major leaguer's bat. And I don't know if I've seen an offensive prospect like him, really.
Yeah, and what astonishes me most about him isn't necessarily just the loud contact off the bat, although it is great. When I was down in Dunedin this year, just watching him take BP, you felt like that was something special. And it's one of those stances. I said the same thing about Gleyber Torres before. If I had a kid who was coming up through Little League, I would show him Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s stance and just be like, learn from this. Everything's in place. Everything's in motion going towards putting the bat on the ball. Everything's really locked in. There's not all these moving parts unnecessarily, whatever, getting him into the rhythm. It's hitting with intent, which is amazing. But the greatest thing to me that shows how advanced he is the guy doesn't ever strike out.
Yeah.
He's got an 8.5% strikeout rate this year so far.
He's walked 14 times and struck out 13 times.
Yeah. He has more extra base hits than he does strikeouts.
That's ridiculous.
Which is
and
crazy.
That's not something you see from a 19-year-old ever.
No.
Certainly not somebody who hits like that. You can see guys who are good on base percentage guys, but you don't often see guys walk more than they strike out and also hit .415 with an 1155 OPS. Like, that doesn't happen.
Right. So it's very clear that he's not being tested anymore. Like, it's great to see, and I know New Hampshire, I think Deadspin had a story today. It was like, please, please, please finally call up Vlad Jr. And New Hampshire's like, no, please don't. We can't we can't picture a future without him. And I get that, and it's so much fun to see him put up like a 4-for-5 day like he did today, where we roll into the office, check a box score, and he's already got 2 doubles. Like, that's a lot of fun. But we're not in it to just see video game numbers. We're in it to see these guys climb the ladder and improve themselves and all that. So I'll turn it to you again, Tyler. And, given the recent history, but also added in with the fact that we've never seen somebody like Vlad Jr. before, is it even worth it to let him play at AAA Buffalo? Is there any challenge he's going to find there? Or is it just best to, I know Josh Donaldson is there. He might not be a third baseman right now, but move him to the majors, let him get tested, let him, DH for all I care. But let him finally face some pitchers who are going to actually challenge him.
Well, and that is part of the larger equation with this. And I remember talking with Colorado Rockies player development director Zach Wilson about this coming into this season, because last year Brendan Rodgers kind of had this first half of the season. He didn't have it necessarily to the same extent as Vlad has had, and he did it in the California League as well. But a guy who was batting .400 at the midway point. He was batting .400 at the All-Star break in the California League. And through the latter parts of May and into June, we were kind of all sitting there thinking, what is Brendan Rodgers still doing in the Cal League? What is the point of him just sitting out there wasting his time by crushing Cal League pitching? But the conversation internally in the organization was, there's a lot of stuff defensively that he's still working on. There's a lot of stuff that we still want to see from him that proves he can play at the AA level on the defensive side. For Vlad, I know that the tools at third base are good. They are by far from his best tools. He's got an 80 grade hit tool, which is as high as you can get. And if you could put an 85 or a 90, I'm sure Vlad would be able to get those two. 65 power, but his arm tool is 55, his field tool is 45. So he's at or a little bit above major league average. as far as his projected talent will be in those categories. So is it a defensive thing maybe that the Blue Jays are still waiting on? That's a possibility. It's a different circumstance with somebody like Vlad because you have the option in the American League to just let him hit for a little while. But I don't know how much that serves you in a positive sense with a young prospect to bring him up and throw him into a lineup on a regular day basis, but not have him play in the field as well. So that's part of the conversation too. My thought process, if he goes to AAA, is that he's not going to have to prove it for long at AAA. I think if there is any trepidation with the Blue Jays and bringing him to the major leagues right now, and they decide to send him to Buffalo, if he goes to Buffalo and through 2 weeks is also hitting 425, or, over 2 week stretches for Vlad, he could be hitting 625, then I think that call will come pretty soon for him. But he is, kind of a generational hitting talent at this stage of his career, which, he's not even a generation old. He's 19, but his dad was that way too. Vlad Guerrero, when he came up and when he was doing his biggest damage in the major leagues, pure hitting wise, there was nobody in baseball quite like him. And that's how his son is right now. And I think his son has the potential to do some things that his father didn't do at the major league level. What I think the only thing that can be proven by Vlad at the AAA level is that he can handle more advanced approaches to his hitting style from pitchers. And that's what we hear so often when we talk to guys who make the transition to the AAA level from AA is everybody here knows how to sequence at bats better. They pitch backwards. They start me with breaking stuff. They start me with change-ups, whatever it is. At AA, he's facing a lot of very talented pitchers, but they're not necessarily guys who have that same type of major league mode of attack. In AAA, not only is he going to be facing very talented and very mature players, he's going to be facing a lot of guys who have already pitched in the major leagues. So it's kind of a testing ground. It's the on-deck circle of the major leagues in terms of what you're going to see when you get to the big leagues. You're not going to see as good of stuff in AAA, and the talent you're going against won't be as big as what you see at the next level, but the approaches going against you will be very similar to what you'll see at the major league level. So maybe that's something that the Blue Jays want to see, but that also could just be grasping at straws. I mean, I think when you get to this stage and you're not in the room where these decisions are being made, you kind of have to throw out concepts of what exactly the organization could be looking at. But right now, from an offensive point of view, there's nothing that Vlad can do anymore to prove something additional at AA. I mean, it's not as though he's batting .415 with an 1155 OPS and this is April 24th. I mean, it's May 16th. We're 6.5 weeks into the season. Like, this is who he is.
Yeah, no, totally. And, trying to find a path to him to the majors right now is also, I think, the biggest thing. Like, if he was a right fielder or something like that, maybe we're talking about, he could slot in very easily with the Blue Jays. But you're not knocking Josh Donaldson, out of the third base spot. And you're not knocking Justin Smoke out of the first base spot. And like you said, Tyler, the clearest spot for him right now is at DH. Kendrys Morales is batting 154 in 28 games. I mean, he is not an asset to that lineup. They could use somebody else there. That being said, you don't want Vlad to come up and just be a DH. That's not really going to help his growth. He needs to, in order to become a better defender, he needs to get innings in the field. I think the signal that we're going to see that they're ready to bring him up rather quickly is either getting him time at first base or getting him time in the outfield again. I know he, had some time in the outfield when they first signed him. They moved him to third base. His arm is very strong. He could work out in right field because of his arm. Not necessarily it's not his dad levels in terms of arm tools, but it's still pretty good. A lot of questions about the range, but that's something you can't really learn on the fly. You need to get in your time in the minors. So if he starts playing right field or first base with New Hampshire, that could be a sign that they're ready to bump him up straight from New Hampshire. If he gets called up to Buffalo, I would imagine one of the first things they do is move him positionally, at least a couple of games a week, not immediately from third base. But that's the only thing as much as you were saying before about sequencing and all that, and I think it's true, I don't really believe that AAA pitching is markedly better than Double A. And especially with his approach already being advanced, I think he could handle that fairly well. I don't think he needs to pass that test necessarily. I just think he needs to get innings at different positions, find a spot for him in Toronto, find a way to get him there by July, because just DHing isn't going to be exactly the answer right now.
It's going to be fun to watch, and when we stop having this conversation about Vlad, we might be having it about Eloy Jimenez right behind him or some of these other guys. I think those are probably the only two who right now seem like maybe they have the ability to make that jump. You look at some of the other guys who are at the Double A level who are tremendously talented, but somebody like Fernando Tatis Jr., he hasn't really broken out to start the season as of yet. Bo Bichette has had a good start to the year, also as part of that New Hampshire team, but doesn't look like somebody who is major league ready. That's how rare this conversation is. It applies to 1, 2, 3 guys every couple of years, really. And even with crazy talents, when we saw Kyle Tucker going into this year, the way that he hit last season, the fact that he was making the jump to AAA after what he did last year, Kyle Tucker is 2 years older than Vlad. He's 21 years old, and he's handling his own in AAA, more than handling his own. He's hitting .297 with an .802 OPS, but it's not as though it's just a no-brainer. Man, this guy looks like he's got the ability to blow up at the major league level right now. Like, it's just such rarefied air to talk about guys like this.
Yeah, and I did a story last week on Eloy, and he, I was writing it while we were doing the podcast mostly, and I finished it right afterwards. But, he got taken out of a game early. He had that multi-hit streak, right. Multiple hits in games in a row streak. And they took him out early, and everybody's like, oh, they're calling him up. And I'm like, no, don't worry. Charlotte's going to have to wait. And then all these White Sox fans are like, we're not talking about Charlotte. We want him here now. And I was like, whoa, that's a little much. I really like Jimenez a lot. I don't think he's quite as ready as Vlad. He's not doing these eye-popping things, again, with strikeouts and walks and basically the entire package that Vlad is. But, and I would even throw in Peter Alonso into that discussion. If the Mets first base situation wasn't already too confusing for me with why Dominic Smith is in Vegas and Adrian Gonzalez is in New York. But that's a different story for a different day.
I remember last year seeing a tweet that was kind of on this topic about something like the year 2047, mankind continues to try to dig its way out from the end days, and 35-time Pacific Coast League batting champion Ahmed Rosario is hitting .350 for AAA Las Vegas, something like that. Like, that was the conversation that we had a couple years ago, where it was like, when are they going to call up Ahmed Rosario? What else can this dude do in AAA? And that's what makes it so different with AA. Is it's just so, this dude is putting up such crazy numbers that it's like, well, does he even need that next step? Like, that's what's so crazy, because sometimes we get to that stage with guys in AAA and they're still not getting that call. So this is a weird one. It's an interesting one.
Right. Yeah. It is legitimate. It's totally, but we should step back and realize, like, this is not normal either. We can't rush guys to the majors. We have to realize, like, that's not usually the path.
Yeah,
maybe
he's 19.
Yeah. Maybe Vlad breaks the streak, but he is also a generational talent right now, and we have to treat him as such.
He is a heck of a lot of fun. If you have not yet gotten your MILB.TV subscription, do it for Vlad. So that'll do it for our lengthy segment on this week's edition of the Show Before the Show podcast. Coming up, we're going to talk with Benjamin Hill, who was on the road this past weekend and will be on the road again, about things in the Eastern League and the International League and the South Atlantic League, and some of his stops and promos and all that stuff coming up next. Road trip season continues with Benjamin Hill, who joins the Show Before the Show podcast. Road trip SZN, as everybody changes their Twitter handle over the last 6 months to something season SZN. Ben went through 3 more stops this past weekend: Lakewood, Harrisburg, and Lehigh Valley, and got to keep it somewhat around the kind of mid-Atlantic region that you started off with Delmarva and Bowie, but getting to expand a little bit. How were the last 3 stops there, Ben?
Hey, it's always great to be on the road, and it's always great to talk to you, Tyler, and sitting to my left, Sam Dykstra.
Left this week.
Yeah, and for added visuals, Sam Dykstra is dressed as the Unabomber, or perhaps late period Eminem. He's got a gray hooded sweatshirt with the hood all the way up, looking very reclusive.
Wow,
yes.
Going full hood up for the show.
That's the way I'm rolling today.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
Kelsey
like it
Hannigan,
too.
actually, one of our best pals at MILB.com, she and I were having a hoodie conversation. She put it very poignantly to me. She said, sometimes you just want to feel like you're in a cave. And I thought that was a good, like when you're wearing the hood up, yeah, sometimes I do want to feel like I'm in a cave. I like it. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, Sam, but, just a good way to think about it. Anyway.
Yeah, Sam doesn't seem like he wants to comment on his his apparel. I'm sorry, Sam. Anyway, yes, I was on the road last weekend, Thursday. A long weekend. Thursday with the Harrisburg Senators. The main attraction there for me, outside the fact I hadn't been there for years, is they had a 1K beer race before the game, and that was the first time I got to witness that. And they had about 250 people who signed up for the beer race. So it was a great minor league baseball moment to see that. It's only 1K. It was 3 laps, not around the entire field, but 3 laps. And you drink a beer, at the start and after every lap. And most of the participants are, taking it very casually, as you'd expect for a 1K beer race, but there were a few hardcore racers, and look out for a story coming probably early next week featuring an exclusive interview with the winner, Josh Sadlock, who came in racing clothes and who was basically had finished his first lap when some of the other people were still just filing out the starting gates and getting their first beer and everything. He was lapping people basically before they even started. So good moment in Harrisburg, and weird night, some bad weather, a freak hailstorm, but they got the game in, and I got to be a member of the all-male dance team and wore an orange jacket on the field. I got destroyed in knocker ball, the big inflatable balls.
Yeah, you didn't include that one in the blog post.
Well, there's going to be a much more thorough blog post, but check it out on my Twitter account, at Ben's Biz, of course. And I got to spend some time checking out the Life-Size Bobblehead Hall of Fame, which is a real cool thing that the Senators do, where when they induct a player into their team Hall of Fame, it is via a literal life-size bobblehead. So they have 5 players on the concourse represented. It's a really cool visual. Vlad Guerrero, Cliff Floyd, Matt Stairs, Bryce Harper, and Brandon Phillips. Wow, I did a good job.
They did, yeah. No, we did not cheat on that one. No. I can confirm.
Yeah, well, it's also fresh in my mind. So anyway, went from there to Lakewood, and it was Clawrassic Ballpark night. The little blue claws. So this is Clawrassic Park. Saw a dinosaur throw out the first pitch and other dinosaur-themed activities.
Would you call that throwing?
Well, it's weird. The dinosaur. And it's too bad we have an audio only form here, but the dinosaur has the ball put into, well, it was a her.
Okay.
Has the ball put into her mouth and then just sort of whips her neck back and forth until she has enough momentum to throw it out of her mouth toward the mound. And
flinging, like a first.
Oh yeah, toward
flinging.
The plate. Yeah, it's more of a fling, but she did very well. Her handler was very proud of her. Her handler was funny. Every time I saw him, he was talking to this dinosaur very gently and saying things like, "Good girl," and he called her T. I don't know if that was short for T-Rex. I don't even know if it was a T-Rex. But he'd be like, "Good girl, T, that's it. Keep going. Oh, good girl." He talked to her like she was like a kitten, but it's a fierce dinosaur who could kill him at any opportunity.
I mean, this is how we stop Jurassic Park from happening. If they had just been kind to the dinosaurs, that whole movie franchise would have been sunk after 15 minutes.
Well, wasn't that the whole thing with Chris, whichever one of those Chris's? Isn't that
Chris
movie?
Pratt.
Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt made friends with all the velociraptors in the last one.
Right, exactly. That's true. And it still didn't work out well for him.
That's true. That is true. They can't be trusted.
This turned into an anti-dinosaur podcast very quickly.
Yeah, concept that everybody wants.
At any rate, at least disaster is averted, at least on this particular night in Lakewood. There was no fatalities due to dinosaur attacks at the ballpark, but a beautiful night. Then went on to Lehigh Valley, Star Wars night on Saturday. Took part in an on-field Jedi training. I believe our colleague Josh Jackson tweeted something about how he can't wait until he hears us talk about this on the podcast, with Sam being excited about Star Wars night and me not remembering any details, which is pretty much how it goes. I have to admit, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but it was cool to get my own lightsaber and take part in an on-field Jedi training, which was mostly just kids running around. But it was a real Jedi who was on the field who conducted the training. And then Kylo Ren came out and got defeated in succession by 60 kids who just did their recently learned Jedi moves. It was basically swipe, block, or twist, block, force punch. That was
Wow,
basically
okay.
how it went.
All right. So what color was your lightsaber? That's the first question.
Well, you had to hit a button to turn it on, which I think is like how it is in Star Wars, right? They have
Of course,
to like hit
yeah.
a button to
Right.
turn it on.
Yes.
It was pink.
Okay.
I liked it, and it made all these noise. Like if you weren't moving it, it would just be like, and then when you moved it would be like pew pew pew. It was really cool. But I left it in a bathroom in the suite area because I didn't want to carry it around all night. So I hope someone got good use out of that.
You can't just leave a weapon in a ballpark.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
That's not how you dispose of those things.
I'm sorry for abandoning a deadly weapon in a upper level bathroom at Coca-Cola Park. I was not thinking clearly.
Do you think in the Star Wars universe there actually is like a proper way to dispose of them, Sam? Like there's like a lightsaber trade-in like an amnesty program for people who no longer need their lightsabers?
I would hope so, but also they're just so limited. Like we probably seen in the movies every owner of an actual lightsaber.
Oh, really? So these
Yeah.
aren't just like walk into the neighborhood Walmart
No,
lightsaber.
no.
Oh, okay.
Come on, have some respect.
Yeah.
Seems intelligently regulated. Ben, give us some other highlights. These are three pretty cool ballparks that you got to swing through as well.
They are great. I haven't yet hit a ballpark this season that I've never been to, but I am putting an emphasis on, places it's been a while, and it has been a while since I've been to any of these. It was a weird night in Lehigh Valley because we got the on-field Jedi training in, but as like all the Jedis are getting shepherded off the field, the tarp comes out at the same time. And then there was a pretty lengthy rain delay, and so there wasn't really the same energy after about a 2-hour rain delay. But I spent a lot of time with my designated eater during the game. They got dozens and dozens of food items at that ballpark. It was a little unfortunate because once we got started after the rain delay, some of the places were already closing. So maybe not the full experience, but a guy named Justin Choate was the designated eater there, former Reading Fightins PA announcer Justin Choate, for those who would care about such a thing. And he said his favorite item there was a funnel cake that had maple bacon funnel cake. So it was kind of like a syrupy, I guess maybe maple syrup or something like that on a funnel cake with, of course, the powdered sugar and bacon. And that was his favorite thing that he got there. So yeah, and I talked to the team about their LeBron James recruitment attempts that are ongoing. They actually, with the thought that if LeBron James wants to really secure his legacy and establish dominance over Michael Jordan, he needs to at least spend one season playing minor league baseball. So the Iron Pigs actually took out a full-size billboard on a road real near the ballpark, saying LeBron come to Lehigh Valley, and there's gonna be more where that came from in their LeBron recruitment attempts, and I'll be writing about that shortly as well.
Can you give us any teases on what that's going to look like?
Well, I think they're putting together a larger campaign. So it's not just a billboard, because the billboard, you guys probably saw it on Twitter. A lot of listeners probably saw it on Twitter. It blew up on Twitter. So they got good social media play just by putting up that billboard and putting out a short press release with it. But I think they are now developing this into a campaign that's going to have a lot more components where, people from throughout Lehigh Valley can really say, this is why we need you in Lehigh Valley, LeBron. And everyone's taking it totally seriously. I mean, I know on a certain level, you kind of have to know that LeBron's not going to play baseball with the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. And if that did happen, it would be because he was signed with the Phillies and they assigned him to their AAA affiliate. A minor league team doesn't recruit and sign people, as we know. But let's just put all that aside. They're going all out. And if it happens, then it'll be the sports story of the year. And all of us will all go to Coca-Cola Park, become Jedis, and watch LeBron James play left field.
I think I would just embed myself in Lehigh Valley for a week and just like emerge, and that would be a tool shed of just like what it's like to be around LeBron James for a week in Lehigh Valley. Like we would just become LeBronJames.com at that point.
I mean,
like, if you thought Tebow was crazy, like LeBron mania would be nuts.
To be fair, he looks like he's got some promising talent in those Sprite commercials, which is not true.
Oh, yeah.
He actually has like the worst pitching mechanics I've ever seen. But still, it's LeBron James. Like if he attempted to learn it for 10 minutes, he'd probably win a Cy Young.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So let's hope he shows up in minor league baseball. I mean, I think the Iron Pigs should get the first chance because they're the ones trying the hardest, and that's how these things work. But
right.
But let's go for it for sure. So anyway, I could go on and on with various details, of course, on the blog, Ben's Biz blog, and on the site. MILB.com. There'll be a lot more to come from these visits. And I'm wrapping up this trip as it is. It's kind of a lot of segments around this general Northeast region. But I'll be in Trenton on Friday night visiting the Trenton Thunder, who, of course, actually will not be the Trenton Thunder on Friday night. They will be making their debut as the Thunder Pork Roll. And it's going to be a huge pork roll celebration, celebrating New Jersey's favorite sandwich and breakfast meat. So the Thunder Pork Roll on Friday, I'll be there. And I am just confident that it's going to be a great night. And that'll wrap up my travels for May. And then in June, we'll talk about that once we get to June.
Let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. Let's stay in the moment.
Well, you mentioned one of the upcoming promos, which is the Thunder Pork Roll, and there are a lot more on promo preview for this coming week, including more food-related ones. The Albuquerque Isotopes, who were the green chili cheeseburgers last year, they played against the Fresno Tacos. They're going to be giving out a taco bobblehead, so they're not always anti-taco, has been kind of put it in the story. In Lansing, really cool, they're doing Pride Night on May 18th, are the Lansing Lugnuts. We're recording this on the 16th, so coming up on Friday. The Palm Beach Cardinals, broken iPhone screen amnesty night. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty basic promotion. I mean, in terms of, I don't think there's a lot of moving parts. I guess there will be some broken parts in it. But they've partnered with a local, screen repair service or company, and they'll be doing one screen repair per inning. So if you come to this game and you have a broken iPhone, enter to win a on-site iPhone screen repair. It's just kind of a cool, quirky little promotion, and that's a good name, Broken iPhone Screen Amnesty Night. So yeah, this promo preview that's up on the site now, I kind of did it how I used to do promo preview all the time, always looking ahead and just choosing a top 10, and of course missing things that people can tell me what I missed. I'm looking at Sam's scroll through the column now. One of the more unique ones, May 18th, which would be Friday, this coming Friday. The Stockton Ports, located in Stockton, California, are giving away an Aaron Judge bobblehead. And if you might say to yourself, why is a Oakland A's affiliate on the West Coast giving away an Aaron Judge bobblehead? It's because he went to high school at Linden High School in the Stockton area. So this is a Aaron Judge high school bobblehead being given away by the Stockton Ports. And I saw the team on Twitter yesterday put up a note talking about the distribution of the bobbleheads and how fans will get vouchers upon entering the stadium, but then have to redeem the vouchers later in the game. And it's all because, as you guys probably know, and if you talk to anyone around the industry, an in-demand bobblehead can become very tricky for distribution purposes, with people trying to just get as many as they can and put them on eBay and whatnot. So teams are always doing anything they can to subvert that process and make it as equitable as possible.
One question I have with this that I don't know if you have an answer to, but when it is a player who's not in the organization, do they have to get the rights or like permission from said player to do this? Is this a players association thing? How do these kind of work? That
is a good question, and I don't know the specifics to it. I know in this case, the Ports have been in contact with Aaron Judge's family. I believe, some of his family members will be there, as well as, representatives from his high school, and there's a fundraising component. So this is clearly, in this case, something that has been cleared with Aaron Judge and the Judge family and the high school in question, whose uniform he's going to be wearing. But I don't actually always know. That's a good question. I don't know always the specifics of the permissions that go into bobbleheads on a case-by-case basis.
Right. Well, that was kind of answers my second question, which is also how funny it must be to the high school team and be like, hey, we'd like to use your hat on a bobblehead. Is that cool? Like, I wonder if there's even negotiation involved in that, or if it's just like, no, you go for it. Yeah, that'd be cool.
My guess is that. I mean, people love bobbleheads, and that's a great little memento for the school and raises awareness for their sports programs. And I think there'll be, again, some fundraising components. So have at it.
Speaking of bobbleheads, coming up on Saturday, the Greensboro Grasshoppers are giving out a royal couple bobblehead to the first 1,000 fans through the gates that day, the day that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle become Prince and Princess, whatever their last name is. But I just want to toss out, what is it, Windsor? Isn't that their last name?
That's like what their line is, but I don't think Harry has Windsor in his name at all.
Prince Harry. Let's
we can get into that conversation later, but yeah.
I just want to toss out that I have a challenge for radio broadcast. His name is this literally his name is Henry Charles Albert David?
Yeah.
He just has 4 first names?
Basically,
what?
yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. When Prince William was married back in the day to Kate Middleton, my broadcast partner and I, James Smythe, who is now a researcher for the Yes Network, we did an entire inning in British accents. If you are a radio broadcaster in the minor leagues who listens to the Show Before the Show podcast, and you take on this challenge and do an inning in a British accent, we will air part of that inning on next week's episode. I'm throwing down the gauntlet now, podcast@milb.com, record it, send it to us. We'll play a snippet. We can all listen and laugh at how bad your British accent is.
Now, Tyler, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but would you be able to provide an example of what these broadcasters should sound like, when speaking in a British accent?
I'm rusty. I'm rusty with a British accent. But I think I actually do somewhere still have the recorded inning that James and I did that now I'm definitely going to have to search for. And perhaps I will have to break that out next week if we do, in fact, get copies from other people.
I feel like this needs to be disseminated, yes.
Benjamin Hill's on Twitter. He's at Ben's Biz there. The blog is bensbiz.mlblogs.com. The promo preview is up on the site right now. And that's all. Ben, enjoy the next trip, the next venture.
Cheerio.
No, that's not how any of that works. A, that was not an accent. B, nobody says cheerio to end this.
Sorry, that's the only British word I know.
Sam,
you know tons of British words because it's English.
Sam Dexter's mad.
Give us a proper British goodbye then, Sam.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just goodbye.
Wrapping up episode number 160 of the Show Before the Show podcast. You can get in touch, podcast@milb.com, with your British accented innings and anything else you would like to discuss with myself and Sam Dykstra. MILB.tv, as we told you in segment number 2, is the place to catch the fighting Vlad Guerrero Juniors in New Hampshire and all the other top talent minor league baseball. Sam, what are you watching this weekend on MILB TV?
So I've got my eye on either Sunday or Monday, depending on how things kind of line up, weather and all that, especially in the Northeast of late. But Harrisburg will be hosting Altoona for a 4-game set starting on Friday. I think Sunday or Monday is when Mitch Keller is going to be slated to start. He started on Tuesday, so depending on how they kind of work things out, I would bet he's probably going to be starting Sunday or Monday. And that'll be especially fun because it'll be Mitch Keller, who's one of the best right-handed pitching prospects in the game, going up against Juan Soto, who, as we mentioned, is still getting used to Double-A Harrisburg, but is also doing extremely well there. It's kind of a power-on-power matchup. Keller has a very good fastball and a very good curveball. A lot of questions about his changeup. Soto, it's a little bit more age appropriate to go against Keller. This isn't a guy with big league experience yet, but it's a guy with potentially big league stuff. So what happens when those two big time prospects go up against each other? I'll be really interested to look out for that. So keep an eye on the probables for Altoona. See if he's going to be pitching Sunday or Monday, but either way, you're going to be wanting to tune in for that. For that matchup between the Sens and the Curve. What do you got, Tyler?
I, as one of our Western Bureau chiefs, I don't feel like I've done a good job this year holding up the interesting West Coast matchups. But a guy that we talked about a little bit in the second segment is Kyle Tucker of the Fresno Grizzlies, who at 21 years old is batting .297, .363, .439 for AAA Fresno. Fresno goes on the road this weekend to El Paso, where they will take on the Chihuahuas in one of the most hitter-friendly ballparks in one of the most hitter-friendly minor leagues. So tune in and watch Kyle Tucker. Remember a couple years ago when we talked about Fresno, like every segment of every show, because Fresno was graduating all this ridiculous talent to the major leagues? They're still so talented. And that team's 24-16. Like, that system hasn't really dropped off for the world champion Houston Astros, which is not fair for most other teams.
Yeah, no, I did a story last week about like teams on the extremes and what teams were leading certain categories. When I wrote it, Fresno was leading all of minor league baseball in average and OBP with a team average of 312 and a team OBP of 393.
Come on. It's not fair.
And they just had Tony Kemp promoted. Which is great news because Tony Kemp is one of those, probably should not be a quad A player, but is a quad A player in the Astros organization, but has tons of speed to burn, a pretty good hit tool, can play multiple positions. So he's heading back up to Houston. We'd love to see him stick in some sort of way up there. Jake Marisnick was optioned back to Fresno. Not that he's that bad of a player either, but really like to see Kemp get his chance. So tons of other guys on that team though who are just waiting for their chance with Tyler White, Drew Ferguson, Kyle Tucker. So no matter what, even with movement, there's still plenty left there with the Grizzlies.
And not to short the home team there either, because El Paso has had an interesting start to the year with prospects that have been called up and sent down. And Franmil Reyes, who's PCL Pitcher of the Week, and then he's in San Diego, and he's crushing the ball. Travis Jankowski was the same way a couple of weeks ago, but there's still some really interesting pieces on that team. Luis Arias, the infielder, who is still just 20 years old, won't turn 21 until next month. Diego Goriz is an interesting player. Javi Guerra is an interesting player. So there's some talent on that El Paso team to keep an eye on as well. So you can catch that on MILB.TV coming up this weekend. Also, one other plug, MILB related, and I believe officially these drop tomorrow. I want to say drop as the kids say these days, but the Hometown Collection is back for 2018. And if you were not privy to it in 2017, Hometown Collection is a minor league baseball merchandise venture in which cool past teams and past identities and past logos from minor league teams have been dug up by the folks at the MILB headquarters in St. Pete, and they've put together hats and such. And coming up, I think tomorrow, and we're recording this on Wednesday, so it'll be released on Thursday. So I think I can probably give. Nah, I'm not going to give the teams. Just go on to MILB shop. The Milb store, and you can check out the hats for yourself, because there are 3 really good hats. And I think this is the first of the series for this year for the Hometown Collection, because we've already been rolling out the Copa de la Diversión hats, obviously all the other special occasion hats for teams around the minor leagues. But Hometown Collection back for 2018, so if you're a hat nerd like me, you can check it out.
Do you have a Copa hat yet?
I don't actually have a Copa hat, and I have tried to narrow down which ones I want and have not yet been able to do that. I know at some point I'm going to end up getting them. I also know that I'm going to end up getting an Omaha Runzas hat, because I went to college.
Come on.
Exactly, because you have to. I went to college in the state of Nebraska. My dad is from Nebraska. Runzas, if you haven't heard of them, it's kind of a local, I don't know if you can call it delicacy, because it's probably disgusting when you describe it to people, but they're delicious. But Omaha is going to become the Runzas for a game, and so I have to get a Runzas hat. But like Omaha's Copa identity, the Cazadores, the Storm Chasers, so cool. Or the Cazadores Tormentas, isn't that what it is? Something like that. But there's just like too many good ones. I can't narrow down what I want from the Copa hats.
I know, yeah. I got a Brooklyn Hefes one for my birthday last month from my sister. Just because I figured, like, I live in Brooklyn, I should rep the hometown team in some way. But I probably will dip back into that to get a second or a third at some point later this summer.
And you can do the same, everybody. Go waste your money at MILBstore.com. And we would be so grateful. And at MILB.TV. You can also get your subscription there for the rest of the 2018 season. That'll do it for this week. He's Sam Dykstra. I'm Tyler Maughan. We'll talk to you next week.